Everything about nests, and it's such an important part of a bird's life cycle, and being able to witness it and host a family in your yard is just so very special. And who doesn't love baby birds, right? So I think, so in this talk, I will tell you about the types of nests and what you can do to make those nests successful in your yard. And I'll also go over a few issues that you might run into as well. So first, we've got our cup nests. So while I talk about cavity nesters a lot for a Nestbox program, of course, there's many different types of nests around our area. I'm only going to cover the ones that are most likely to be found in people's yards around here. So first, we've got our cup nests. Birds like cardinals, finches, they all make cup nests. The sides are woven of grass and sticks. The cup is fairly deep to hold the eggs. A lot of birds make nests. It's one of the most popular type of nests. Hummingbirds make a cup nest as well, but theirs looks much different. It doesn't have the twigs that you might find in the cardinal nests. It is more consisting of spider webs, hairs, lichens, things like that. Some examples of cup nests here on the left is the cardinal nest. On the right is a violet-crowned hummingbird. Other species that build cup nests are curve-billed thrashers, mockingbirds, towhees, sparrows, finches, just a very popular type of nest. Then we have platform nests, and they are mostly flat, consisting of twigs or whole branches. They range from the small ones like the mourning dove nest you see on the left to the huge ones like this greyhawk nest on the right. You'll find these in forked branches of a tree. Dove nests are pretty flimsy, so they rely mostly on hope to hold up the nest. Some of the other birds that build platform nests are the bigger types, so hawks, ravens, ospreys, herons, eagles. Great horned owls also use platform nests, but they don't build it. They politely or not so politely borrow them from red-tailed hawks or other hawks. And there are a few things that you can do to help our cup and platform nesters around here. When pruning trees, beware to leave forked branches for these birds. You could even invite the doves to nest in a specific spot by making a little wire basket. I got this tutorial off Cornell's Nest Watch. It's just 12 by 12 hardware cloth. And this would make a fun kid project. It's also a way to lure them away from unwanted areas or a way to salvage a broken nest. You could also offer nesting material for them to use. So feathers, straw, twigs, things like that. I'll talk more about the best nesting materials later in this presentation. Then we have our ground nests. Killdeer, nighthawks, porwell, quail, they all nest on the ground. Usually a simple scrape or loose material is all that they need. Their eggs are nicely camouflaged to the surrounding area. On the left, you see a common nighthawk egg. It looks well camouflaged, looking like a rock. On the right is the Gambel's quail eggs. They don't have much of a nest, but sometimes they scrape together surrounding sticks and leaves before laying eggs. There can be up to 15 eggs in just one nest. And if you don't see the mom there, don't worry. They often come and go all the time. So out in the wilderness areas, Gambel's quail lay eggs under bushes or large prickly pear clumps. So when planning your habitat at home yards, make sure to include some mounding bushes for them, not only for nesting, but also also for shelter to get away from predators and things like that. That's a good way to invite those birds to your yard in general. Sometimes birds nest in places that are unsafe or inconvenient for us, and legally you cannot mess with a native bird's nest, but there's a couple of tricks that I can tell you to make it a little bit better for both of you. For example, Gambel's quail are known to use plant pots for laying their eggs in the residential areas. This is a temporary inconvenience as the quail chicks are precocial, which means that they hatch and leave the nest immediately. So the nest is usually there about a month with laying and incubation. And it's best to leave them alone at that time and not scare the mom off the eggs. Some people just leave the plant in the plant pot alone, but what you can also do is use watering globes and push them deeper to the root area so that the roots get the water and the mama bird is not disturbed and the eggs are not wet. So that's a couple things you can do. And that also limits the number of times you have to go to the plant pot and how much time you spend nearby. And of course, if you do discover chicks in your yard, depending on if you have a solid fence or not, they'll remain there until they get older and learn to fly, about 2 weeks or so. So watch your dogs while outside to make sure that they're safe while they're out and about in your yard. There's also some really impressive woven nests. For example, verdant nests that look like spheres with an opening towards the bottom. Verdants make many nests. In spring, they construct their breeding nests. And at any time of the year, they also construct smaller roosting nests. And the breeding nests are well ventilated. Like I said, they're a little bit bigger. They also have a little lip towards the entrance, which is towards the bottom of the nest. And that lip makes sure that the eggs and the nestlings don't fall out. Their roosting nests are much tighter and they're well insulated for colder weather. So that's really interesting, fascinating little birds. I also had the fortune of hosting a hooded oriole nest, which you see on the right. A few years back, their nests are really intricate. It's a hanging basket under a palm frond, which acts as a roof for their nest. Other birds that make woven nests are cactus wrens, but they make more of a grassy looking nest. So verdants and orioles have one thing in common. They love fruit and jelly feeders. They also are found on hummingbird feeders, but they do have to put in some work to get anything out of those. Verdants will collect feathers for their numerous nests. So you can offer that as their nesting material for them. Sometimes Cooper's hawks like to have, their lunch in my yard. So I have feathers all over the place very often. And it's not the most cheery scene. But then when I went to clean them up one time, I saw a verdant actively picking them up, and I decided to just leave them around for nature to take over. Nothing goes to waste. You can offer verdants and orioles feathers, like I said, straw and dry grass. Oh, and that's for cactus wrens including. So like I said earlier, orioles nest under downward facing live fronds of palm trees. So it is best not to over prune your palm trees. This often happens when the thought is, well, I'll just trim as much as I can while I'm up here. And so I don't have to go back up for a long time to prune again this palm tree. But over pruned palm trees are unhealthy. They have a lower photosynthesis capabilities. it stresses the tree, and over time it creates a thinner trunk. So I recommend that you don't over prune your trees and don't let your landscapers do that. Also, I should mention, keep your choyas, thrashers, and cactus wrens. Seek them out for their nests. They make for some excellent protection for their eggs and chicks. And in this illustration, you see this is acceptable pruning of a palm tree. Some of the palm fronds are horizontal still. And then this is what I often see when the palm tree is over pruned. Then, of course, we've got cavity nesters. Cavities are excavated by woodpecker species, or they occur naturally with peeling bark or natural occurrences, weather occurrences. Cavity nests vary on the inside. Some birds bring in nesting material, such as the ash-throated flycatchers and purple martins, for example, and others use whatever is on the bottom of the cavity already. It could be an old nest of another species or just debris from excavating the hole. So screech owls and kestrels do not make nests of their own. Ash-throated flycatchers do, and this is what you see on the right side of the screen. This is an ash-throated flycatcher. Their nests are very unique. They consist mostly of furs gathered around the area. That looks very cozy in there. The bottom of the nest is twigs and sticks, and the top of the nest is furs of different kinds. I've found pieces of rabbit fur, horse hair sometimes when there's a horse pasture nearby. So it's quite interesting. Saguaros are currently the biggest provider of cavities for birds, but they are slow growing and they're often removed for development. And there's just so much competition for the cavities that the woodpeckers create. And since not every bird can excavate their own cavity, most species rely on woodpeckers to do that for them. And when woodpeckers excavate the cavity, they have to wait a few months for the inside to scar over before they can even start using it. So make a long-term investment into a saguaro cactus for your yard. Also, the big mature trees in your yard are, or in our yards in general, are also, they're pruned for safety reasons, very understandable. So they often don't have those split branches or buckling bark that Lucy's warblers love so much. A couple of things you can do is leave dead snags, and snags are dead trees or dead branches of a live tree. Those are usually easier to excavate and they support our cavity nesting birds and bees. So if it's safe, leave it up. Nest boxes are an excellent way to supplement cavities in our area. Largest in this picture is for screech owls and American kestrels. Medium is a standard bluebird size nest box. It covers ash-throated and brown-crested flycatchers as the most common in urban Tucson. If you go into the foothills and up Mount Lemmon, you have a lot more species that could use this design, such as wrens, nuthatches, titmice, and other cavity nesters. The smallest designed here in the middle is for Lucy's warblers. They're one of only 2 cavity nesting warblers in the United States. They're very small. For the owl and the kestrel box, you want to line it with 2 to 3 inches of wood shavings. So you can get that at any pet store in the small pet bedding area. And that's because owls and kestrels don't make their own nests. And this creates more of an insulation and something that would naturally occur in a saguaro, for example. It wouldn't be just a bare wood floor. This keeps the eggs from rolling around too much, and as well as insulation. For the other nest boxes, the medium and the small, the birds for those boxes, they create their own nests, so you don't have to put anything inside. You can just offer supplemental nesting material outside of the nest and offer it to them. Lucy's warblers use mesquite petioles and line the nest with feathers of other species. I found cardinal feathers in Lucy's warbler nests and things like that. I don't know why you would have furs lying around that you might want to use, but like I mentioned, ash-throated and brown-crested flycatchers, they do use a lot of fur in their nests, and I can imagine that it's not that easy to come by. So I could go on about nest boxes for days, so let me know if you have any questions. Our website offers excellent resources to help you pick out the right nest box. I'm going to go ahead and answer the question about bees with nest boxes. So that is a possibility, and there's not much that we can do about specifically keeping the bees out. So most likely what you will get in a cavity is a wasp nest, not a bee. So bees do take over some of the larger nest boxes. Wasps also do so. And what you can do for keeping away wasps is preventing them from attaching the stalk of their wasp nest to the roof of the nest box by putting something that is slick, a little bit oily. So you can use a little bit of cooking oil, a little bit of Vaseline. You have to make sure that it's a very thin layer and that it's only on the roof, because you do not want that stuff to get on the bird feathers. That's really important. For bees, I've heard that they're more averted to smells. So you can, I've heard people have success with putting a little bit of WD-40 smell on the outside of the nest box, and that just keeps them away. But you also want to make sure that it does not come into contact with any with birds at all. So those are a couple of things that you can do. And then of course, if you do get a bee swarm into your nest box, you want to make sure that you don't try to remove it yourself and that you call professionals. There's a lot of bee companies that will remove it for you and not kill the bees. They're actually, we all know we need the bees for our pollinators. So there are companies that will come and take them away for you. And look, do we have more questions at the moment?
Yeah, so Pauline asked about directional positioning of nest boxes. Is there a better direction, whether it's north, west, south? What do you?
Definitely. It's important here in the desert Southwest to keep our nest boxes as cool as possible. A lot of our birds start nesting in the spring to avoid those hot months, but a lot of the more tolerant birds like flycatchers, they'll nest into the summer as well. Brown-crested flycatchers nest in June and July as well. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your nest boxes have, it's recommended that they have overhead shade. So installing them into it in the tree is a good way to go. You want to have them on the north to east side so that the afternoon warm sun is not directly on the nest box. So those are the couple of things that you want to do. Depending on the type of species that you have, the height off the ground will vary by species, and that it can be found with the nest box when you purchase it at our nature shop, or it's on our website as well.
What about attaching it nest box to a house? Is that, if you don't have very many trees in your yard, is that acceptable?
Absolutely. A lot of people put their nest boxes, their owl boxes on the house. That usually is kind of the higher vantage point for them around their property. So you want to still kind of try to do it on the north to east side. You want, and if there's a tree shade over the top or just in front of it is a plus. You also want to make sure that the flight path into the owl kestrel boxes, as well as the flycatcher boxes, that the flight path is clear of branches, so it's not obstructed, because those species fly straight into the opening. With Lucy's warblers, they're more of a, they like it more secluded. They'll hop around the little branches and then go into the nest box. So they don't need a clear flight path.
That's it for questions at this point.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna go over some unsafe and safe nesting materials out there. This is a list of unsafe nesting materials. Human hair is very strong. We might not think so, but it is, especially for our little nestlings. It causes nestlings to get tangled in their nest and die or get injured. We actually had a firsthand experience with that when a Lucy's warbler nestling was acting strange, and it was on the day that it was supposed to fledge, and we saw it bouncing up and down in the nest box, and it wasn't making any progress moving. So we were able to see that on our camera, and we informed the homeowner, and who was able to get up to the nest and cut the nestling out. It was indeed being held down by a hair. Thankfully, it wasn't injured and it wasn't too tight around the leg. And sometimes we can't control that some hair gets out in our yard, but just don't offer it as a nesting material. You also want to avoid wood dust in nest boxes. You want to make sure that it's wood shavings. Wood dust is really bad for their breathing. No yarn or string for the same reasons as hair. Dryer lint is just not structurally sound when exposed to the elements, so it will fall apart when put into a nest, so you don't want to do that. Dog hair should be used very carefully. If your dog had flea and tick treatment recently, avoid using the hair. The fur, it may be toxic to the birds. Plastic and cellophane is dangerous for tangling and suffocation reasons. And sometimes we don't put these things out for birds on purpose, of course. But if they get accidentally blown into the yard, or if they're not cleaned up right away, they can be harmful to birds. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now for the safe nesting material, we have natural cotton, cattail fluff, cottonwood down. Those are all things that would normally be found in nature, and I often see being collected at Sweetwater. Wood shavings, like I said, you want to do that for owls and kestrels, since they don't make their own nests, and those can be found in the small pet bedding section at any pet store. Feathers, you'll see Verdants especially love hunting down feathers. Lucy's warblers do, but many other species too. Straw, small twigs. I always see doves fighting over the perfectly sized twigs in our brush pile. Some birds like to line their nests with dead leaves. Purple martins, for example, do that, and I learned that last year, or not last year, but this year, from studying their nests. We also sell nesting material kits at our nature shop, though I probably wouldn't use this bright yellow one, but the rest seem to be okay. You can spread the nesting material on the ground or hang it over branches. Some people buy or make a special cage, kind of like suet feeders, to hold the nesting material. It doesn't have to be very fancy. I also would like to cover some things you may encounter if you have a nesting bird in your yard. Sometimes you might get a cowbird egg appear in a different species nest. And I know a lot of people don't like cowbirds for this reason, but that's how they evolved to breed. They lay their eggs in this other species nests, and they let the other parents raise their chick, and their actual chicks don't survive. Bronzed and brown-headed cowbirds are native species and are protected by law, so you have to leave them alone. This is a picture from this past June of one of our Lucy's warbler nest boxes. When I was monitoring, I noticed this chick did not look right for Lucy's warbler. That giant beak was a dead giveaway. I returned in a few days with a camera to get more pictures, and the chick was already out of the nest box and being fed by the parents outside of the nest box. And here's a picture for size comparison. We have a Lucy's warbler parent and the big cowbird chick, and the parent's whole head fits inside the chick's mouth. But it was interesting to document. It was our first time we had a cowbird chick in one of our nest boxes. You could potentially encounter a chick outside of its nest. First, you want to assess the condition of the bird. Are they feathered and reactive? If so, then they're likely fledglings and you want to leave them alone. They're doing fine. Parents will be back to feed it. If they're featherless and helpless, look for its nest and try to put it back if possible. The parents will not smell you and abandon the nest. Don't worry. If you cannot find the nest or it's out of reach, call Tucson Wildlife Center and they'll give you directions on how to bring it to them. You basically want to keep the bird in the box with airflow, no water, no food. Just try to get it to the rehab center as fast as you can. You can then call the center and check on the bird, which I thought was a nice feature to see how your little rescue is doing. Another thing that you should keep in mind is pruning trees. You have to be very careful. Arizona's nesting season is very long due to warm climate. It's the breeding season starts in March and ends in September for a lot of birds. Owls and other raptors start even earlier in January. And some birds go in even later. This year, we've seen doves nesting into October. Also, some birds use their nests for roosting, so like verdants and kestrels and owls. Those are all things to keep in mind. You want to prune trees in early spring or even end of winter, just after a last frost. This is going to conserve the nutrients before they go into the places that you're going to cut. You also want to avoid cutting it during the high stress times, so very cold or very hot, so frost and or droughts. Always inspect the branches. That is just the only way to be sure, is to inspect the branches you're about to prune. Watch out for the birds that are acting weird as they're trying to distract you away from their nest. They might be the ones to tell you that there is something to watch out. You know, there is a nest that you're getting close to it. We all know that birds hit windows. Unfortunately, this is even a bigger issue during our breeding season as the birds fly and interact in the habitat, and their hormones are telling them that the reflection in the mirrored window is a rival that they have to fight and attack. And while those attacks are not fatal to the bird, they're expending precious energy, and they should be going on about their normal business instead. So try to stop that right away. You can temporarily block the reflections until they move on by putting a plant in front of it or hanging a piece of cloth in front of it. Once they move on, you can take it off. And to prevent window strikes, there's a few things that you can do. First, you can try putting bird feeders 0 to 3 feet away from a window. So that's gonna not let them gain enough speed to hit the window and get hurt. Or more than 30 feet away from the nearest window, which will leave them more space to maneuver. But most importantly, we gotta make windows visible. And we have a lot of ways that you can do that on our website that I will provide in the follow-up email. We're also launching a new bird safe buildings program in January. So keep an eye out for more resources as we go along. There's also a couple ways that you can contribute to the community science program that has to do with nests. If you purchase a Lucy's Warbler nest box, we want you to register the nest box and report your observations as we're still gathering more information about this species. I also want to encourage you to contribute to Cornell's Nest Watch program. It is a website where you can go through a short training session where they give you the best practices for responsible nest observations. Then you can submit your observations to Nestwatch about your nests, which can be used by scientists to gather better understanding of different species. Nestwatch is also a great resource to learn more about the nesting birds of North America. If you want to learn more about our local bird nests, I recommend this book. It's sold by the Desert Museum, A Guide to Southern Arizona Bird Nests and Eggs. It's kind of an older book, and it's on sale for just $10 from the Desert Museum right now. We don't sell it at a nature shop, unfortunately. If you want a deeper, more scientific understanding of bird breeding information, I would recommend Cornell's Birds of the World, which is a paid service. We also have books available at a nature shop that cover the broader area for bird nest and egg identification. And I'll include all these links in the follow-up email as well. So, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple questions. So you talked about nesting material. And one of the questions that I thought was good, what time of the year is the best time to put out that nesting material?
Great question. So I would probably put it out in March, which is going to be the time that most birds are starting to look for nesting material. That would be the best bet, is March. But I would keep it out through the whole spring if you can.
All right, another question was, some people collect nests saying birds don't reuse their nests. Is that true or false? And if I got to go get the door real quick, so my doorbell just went, right? But if you could answer that, that'd be awesome.
So if people collect nests, okay, I think that's what I heard. So a lot of birds don't reuse nests because of some parasites do gather in nests, and some nests are just not, they're just not good. They're just not good after the first brood. For example, with the hummingbirds, we know that they have the spider webs on the outside, and that helps the nest expand as the nestlings grow. So then usually they don't reuse that as it already is stretched out with the nestlings there. But some birds do. A lot of our cavity nesters will reuse that nest. Especially this often happens in one season where they reuse for a second brood, but most often they'll have to create a new one the next year. With the doves, a lot of their nests are kind of flimsy, but they'll reuse the same one for like the 5 broods that they have that year and hope that it holds up. But it does, if it doesn't hold up, they'll make it stronger. Luke, did you say that people collect nests? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I have seen some people take different nests, and I
Right.
don't
So
know if
that
that's,
does happen, and the legality of it is kind of iffy. A lot of people say that you shouldn't collect nests, and you shouldn't possess any part like eggs and feathers and stuff. You need a permit for that type of stuff.
yeah. How about nest maintenance? What's the best way to clean out your nest box? And is February, I assume probably February, March is probably the best time to do that.
Yeah, so for example, if you have a nest box, for example, Lucy's warbler box, you want to make sure that you clean out that old nest by the end of February. In March, they'll start arriving back. And the reason is, again, just so, just because the parasites do accumulate in a lot of the nests, and you want to make sure that they have a fresh start when they come back. With owls and kestrels, that's a whole different conversation because they bring a lot of rodents and lizards and birds, and
Yeah.
that stuff accumulates inside the nest box. Not a very healthy environment, of course. So you want to clean that out, and you want to make sure that you wear a mask when you do that, and you wear gloves. You don't want to inhale any part of a mouse carcass that might be inside there. And you want to do that for the owls and kestrels. You want to do that by the end of the year. So like December is a good time to do that, because starting January, February, they're already going to start to pair up. They're going to start spending more time inside the nest box. So you don't want to interfere with that too much. Regarding other nests, you can certainly, clean them up. If there's a nest that is in an inconvenient location, you can't really touch it until it's no longer being used. Then if it, some people have them around over their doorway or something like that, and the droppings are a problem. So after it's no longer being used, you can put little spikes there, just block off that area and provide them a different location that they can choose away from that area. Depends on the species, but you can put that wire basket for mourning doves and things like that.
Awesome. Let's see. And you kind of touch on when to put up an owl box, because they start breeding fairly early. So you're going to want to get that owl box up probably anytime right now.
Yeah, so actually a good time for owls, if you want your nest box to be discovered more quickly by an owl species. Of course, it helps if you already have an owl roosting in your patio or something that you've noticed. Then you have a good chance of your nest box being used. But also, if you put it up in the fall, starting September through November or so, you have a good chance of it being discovered because all the young owls are dispersing away from their parent territories in the fall. And so they're going to be looking for a place to stay and make their own territory as well. And owls, like I said, will use a nest box all year. So you're providing a safe place for them all year to stay.
Jim asked a question about using bleach for cleaning. My guess is probably no, but I don't know.
Well, you want to make for things that are porous, like wood, you probably don't want to use bleach. If you're cleaning out something like a ledge or something, you can definitely use bleach. Bleach is used in diluted solutions to clean fountains and bird feeders, to get rid of all the bacteria that can make the birds sick. So For nest boxes, I certainly wouldn't use bleach. You only have to take out the old nesting material and put up fresh shavings for owls and kestrels, and then you should be good to go.
So an earlier question that Jim had here, maybe I missed it. He asked, why not the yellow feathers?
Oh, the yellow feather, to me, it kind of stood out like very bright for a nest, and a lot of times that you want to conceal a nest. But just my feeling to it. I know Lucy's warblers had cardinal feathers in their nest just fine. So, but yellow feathers seemed to be super bright to me.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. What about putting a nest box? Should it be close to, like, if you have feeders or, a water dish or something, should it be near or further away from the food and water resources?
So there should be some distance between those features, just because the water and the feeders, they gather a lot of activity of other different birds, and so not the most secluded area for a nest. So birds might not like that, but definitely it would be helpful to have it in the same yard for birds that do use your seed feeders. Water feature, I always think, is a must for every yard here in Tucson, just because it's such a stressful desert environment, even in the winter, that birds really need it. And seed feeding birds really need it for digestion of their seeds. So it's always good to have a water feature. Just have some distance. It doesn't have to be really far away from those features, but just not right in the same tree, I would say.
Great. Did anyone have any other questions, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question too?
Yes, I do. This is Alan.
Alan?
We've been observing some peculiar behaviors amongst finches and sparrows. And I don't know if it's nesting related or not. It was really a lot during this hot summer. But we have screening over our windows, and finches, verdants, have been landing on the screen and pecking at the screen. And they've removed like over a square inch of screening in some cases, and all around the bottom, just destroying the screen. And I've observed it just a few days ago with a house finch. I just don't know what, it's never been happened before. Just started this summer, perhaps the heat, don't know.
That's fascinating. Huh. It seems like they are looking for some type of nesting material, and that seems like a good option for them around your area. The screen must not be, super sturdy that they can cut through it.
So fiberglass, essentially.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I haven't heard that, but honestly, they're so resourceful. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I've found some interesting things inside bird nests. They just like, oh, this looks good for my nest, I'll include that. That's why we have to be selective in what we offer them. And I know nothing that you can do about that, because it's a screen on your window, of course.
Is there anything that we could put that would replace that so they wouldn't peck on the windows on the screen?
That's a good point. I don't know. I would say just trying to block it off with something until they move on to something else, but that's so interesting.
Well, it sounds like you're not alone. Dee also mentions that Verdant like to come and sit on the screen on her window screen as well. So
yeah,
maybe not carrying a hole in it, but
right. I thought that at first it was just, them sitting on the screen, and that would be explained by them looking for little spiders and little creatures that like to use those crevices and to call home. So they'll be feeding around those areas, but I haven't heard them removing whole things. Maybe they need screening for their windows in their nests. I don't know.
Yeah, we've had Verdants hanging on when the evap cooler's going. They love the cool air coming out, of course, but this is
And
totally.
there's always a little bit of water dripping off those coolers, so they might be looking for moisture there too.
You have black metal screen that's see-through. You see through it better, but that'd be a good replacement because then you get to see better and they would leave it alone.
Yeah. Good point.
That's a good point. Well, hey, any other questions before we head out? Well, thank you, Olya.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I had
All right. Well, I know the next time that many of us will get together will be on Thursday for Tucson Audubon's holiday party. Usually we do that in the evening and it's a potluck style type of thing, but this year we get to do it on Zoom, and we have a guest speaker, Laura Erickson's going to be with us, and we're going to have some other fun social stuff going on. It's at 1 o'clock on Thursday, so maybe you'll get to join us for that. I think we have over 200 people signed up already, so that'll be fun.
I'll be there.
And Olya and I will both be there. So thanks again, Olya, and feel free to unmute yourself and say thank you to Olya, or put up the thumbs up reaction or the little clapping thing. And I'll send out the.
Great info.
Thank you. It was very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olya.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
See you, David.
You learned a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Guys
good.
later.
Very
That was
informative.
really helpful, Olya.
Yay, thank you.
Bye-bye.